This Opie podcast was recorded at an earlier date. Some material may be outdated and or mentioned under different circumstances.
The Minutia Men Celebrity Interview is up next. The following is a Tony Lasano podcast, an Opie production on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. This is Minutia Men Celebrity Interview with Rick Kempfer and Dave Stern.
The following is a Tony Lasano podcast, an Opie show on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. This is the Minutia Men Celebrity Interview with Rick and Dave.
Okay, joining us on the phone right now, he's the Vice President of CBS Photography Operations, but you may know him for something else, and that is maybe one of the most iconic photographs ever
the
taken.
20th century, definitely.
Especially in the 20th century. People my age and Dave's age were in our late 50s.
Mid-50s, thank you very much.
It's the photograph at Kent State, the massacre of the 4 students by the National Guard. John was there. He was a youngster. He took that photograph that we have all seen a million times. Could you tell us, just paint the picture of what it was like on that day at that time?
Well, at that time, it was the whole day was very surreal. Students were coming in, doing their photo work and saying, "Oh, you're going to go to the rally at noon." And I said, "Well, yes, I'm going to go." And it was I said, "Okay, I'm going to see if I can document student protest in America because I've missed everything else." There was a larger group that went to the right of the building as you stood on the commons and looked at it, and there was a smaller group that went up on the left, and the person leading the smaller group had this huge nightstick, and he looked like he was just looking for someone to whack. Yeah. So I said, I'm going to follow that squad up that left side of the hill. Of course, nothing happened. Nothing really of note happened. And keep in mind, my assignment, I have an hour, is to get student protest in America. And so far, no one's even close to each other. But once again, as a photographer, even as a student photographer, no one really trusted you because they thought you were either working for some spy agency or the CIA. And of course, anyone in law enforcement didn't like you because, you're there for the brutality photo.
Did you have long hair, John? Were you a hippie?
Not really.
No, okay.
I sort of had a hippie attitude, but I didn't dress like it. And so when I got to the other side of Taylor Hall, the crest of that hill, I noticed that the large contingent of group, guardsmen, about 80, 85, something like that, they put down a squad rifle line pointing at the students that were in the parking lot. And then there was this lone student with the black flag, something spray painted on it, couldn't read it, basically a broomstick with a black flag on it. Mm-hmm. And the student goes down onto this the rugby field, practice football field, and in sort of at distance, waving this flag in front of this kneeling squad of guardsmen there in helmets and gas masks, and they're pointing their rifles at them. And I'm going, "Oh my God, this is the best picture I've ever taken. This is
hold it right there,
fantastic." And I'm looking around saying, "Did anybody get this picture?" And I'm walking up the sidewalk, saying, "Well, that was an interesting thing. I think it's all over." Only to find the guardsmen returning in a hurry, students fleeing, and I'm standing on the sidewalk, and it's in this uphill climb with steps and everything, and I'm dodging students, and the guard begins firing, and they're on the crest of the hill, and I'm about 2/3 of the way up the hill, and you hear, you sort of hear the whiz of the bullet go by your ear.
Jeez.
And then you hear the sort of the guns going off. And I remember, I said, I got to get a photo. I thought it was a scare tactic, other than once I heard that bullet, I knew it wasn't go by. And before that happened, there was looked like a guardsman pointing a rifle in my direction, and he let loose. And in my field of view, immediately in front of me, was this huge metal sculpture. There's this huge clang, and there's this cloud of rust around it. And that bullet penetrated that sculpture and hit the tree to my right.
Oh, my God.
Took off a little chunk of bark. And I said, oh, my God, someone was using live ammunition. And I shocked. I sort of dropped the camera around, it was wearing around my neck. But by the time I recomposed myself, it was sort of over. And I was angry that I didn't get a picture of the guardsmen shooting. And but I noticed around the metal sculpture there was somebody wounded. I mean, they were laying on the ground. People, just starting to look at them and starting to minister to them. And as I turned slowly around behind me, because I couldn't understand how I didn't get hit. I mean, that was my initial reaction: is, am I hitting them in a state of shock and I don't know it? Because there were people, the bullets on my right, and immediately to my left, if you look down the hill, was this body on the asphalt, and a huge stream of blood coming out of the neck area.
Oh my God.
And not being a doctor or a medical technician, I said, well, my God, that person's dead. Just on the volume of blood in that few seconds, I sort of elected to go that way, not to where the wounded person was, because already the guard had sort of reformed and left. I stayed by the body of Jeffrey Miller, and I think I sort of wanted to flee immediately after the shooting, and then stopped myself halfway down the hill saying, well, it's all over. What are you running from now? And then stayed with the body of Jeffrey Miller. And I do remember students screaming in my ear about what kind of pig I am shooting in this picture of this body, blood. And you just had to ignore it, When I took that picture of the student with the black flag, which found out later was Alan Canfor, who was later shot through the wrist trying to hide behind a tree. On that same roll was the Mary Vecchio picture with the body of Jeffrey Miller.
Right.
And I knew I was running out of film. And I had this tremendous debate: shoot this picture, don't shoot. When she knocked down near the body, you could see this emotion building in her. And I had no idea she was a 14-year-old runaway. She was.
She wasn't even a student. Yeah, she wasn't a student there. She was just there for the protest, right?
And she was a kid on the run. Yeah. And found her 2 weeks later, in Indianapolis, I think. But
wow.
Well, the point is, I could see this emotion building in her, and I was having this debate: shoot this picture, don't shoot the picture. And then she just lets out with a scream, and you shoot the picture. I think I shot one more frame, and then I got another half frame, and that was it. And immediately changed roles. Had the presence of mind to scratch that roll with a set of car keys, and put that in my pocket, and continued through the day until the university closed. Much later in the afternoon, nothing really opened up after the shooting. But the initial radio report, and we're talking a lot of AM radio back then, I don't think there's a whole lot of, but people were listening to transistor radios, and they were saying, the initial radio reports out of 10 were 2 guardsmen, 2 students killed in shootout. Oh. And everyone says, the students, the paranoia at the time, the Nixon paranoia at the time. Yeah, sure. This is, all right, here we go, cover up. This is bad. And anybody was there? No, there was no
firing back.
There was no. This wasn't the OK Corral.
Right.
This was, and what had happened was a group of students, I want to say about 200, went down and sat on the commons and sent an emissary to the head of the guardsmen and said, "Why did you shoot?" And the response that the person brought back, and it was a grad student, said, the guardsman said, the general said, if you guys don't disperse, they're going to shoot again.
Oh my God!
And now you had time to think about this, and no one moved. And you went, oh my God! I'm about 10 people back. How far will a bullet go through? How many bullets?
Rick and I would have been getting sandwiches for everybody.
Right, exactly. We'll be right back, guys.
Anybody like coffee?
All right, you get a Reuben. I'll be back in a little.
So here I am with this film, but I called the Trenton Valley Daily News, and my boss answered the phone, and I said, he knew who it was immediately. He said, "Hey, did you get anything?"
Did I get anything?
And here's no. It's the first time anybody asked me if I shot any pictures.
Okay.
The boss said to come in and said, "Well, you know what? I would like to hold this for the next day's paper. I mean, it's an afternoon paper, 30,000, 35,000." And I said, No one's going to believe what happened. I just felt time was not on my side.
Yeah.
It held everything till the next day that who's going to come in and grab this phone.
Right.
Men in Black.
And I said, no, I said, I can't do that. I can't do that. They brought in the publisher, and I just sort of stood my ground. And I said, look, this has to go out. We have to call. We had an AP transmitter. They just got the AP transmitter. And boy, this New York was getting really upset with this kid calling him from. Guy, where are you? What do you? I said, I have some good pictures, guy. And this guy just sort of read me the riot act for 30 seconds. Like,
don't you bother me.
Hey, listen, kid.
There's a big Nick story going on, and then finally I said, this guy says, who are you? And I said, who are you with? And where are you? I said, I'm 110 miles away. And about 2 hours away from Kent. I was a student. I'm a student at Kent. You know what I mean? And all right. I might be able to get to you about 7 o'clock tonight or something. And you go, okay. And so what had happened is the Akron Beacon Journal, this is like this 1930s World War II technology, transmitting wire photos. It's off a reflective optical bench. And all of a sudden you hear this voice from New York say, oh my God, kid, that's a good picture.
Hey, you're going to make it in this bitch, kid.
And he said, do you have any more? And I said, yeah, I got a few more. I think the next one was the student with the black flag. And I went out of my way to say that's not where the shooting happened, even though the guardsmen looked like they were ready to shoot. And we had a few more from the rest of the day. But we got the pictures out that evening. Wow. But it was a fight the whole way. I mean, it was just, and I think they wanted me to write a first person story, and I did that. And I remember getting home and collapsing, only to be awakened by my mother. And I can't tell you how many, I don't know if it was a day or a day and a half later. And my mother says, oh, there's some FBI people in the kitchen. I just gave them some cake and coffee.
They're very nice.
Yeah, Mom was impressed.
It's been a pleasure, and we really appreciate your time. And
thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, John.
Take it easy.
Welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
They say that we live in the most divided nation ever right now.
Yeah.
I think it might have been a little more divided then.
Yeah. Well, you're right. You forget how horrible it was in the 60s.
Absolutely.
But thank you, John, for it was. Can you imagine at 19 years old? I mean, when you were in college at 19, you would have never taken that picture because you wouldn't have been awake during the day.
Exactly.
Right.
Right, exactly. It happened at like noon. I wasn't getting up for another 3 hours.
Exactly.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of the Minutia Men Celebrity Interview. Special thanks to executive producer Tony Lasano with opishows.com. Opie is hippo backwards. OPPIH shows.com. Distributed by Ed Silla from the Radio Misfits. Great talk radio isn't dead. It just moved to a better place. RadioMisfits.com. And we'll be back again next week with another edition of Minutia Men Celebrity Interview.
This Opie podcast was recorded at an earlier date. Some material may be outdated and or mentioned under different circumstances.
The proceeding was a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Find our other great shows on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and at RadioMisfits.com. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of Opie Productions.
Tony, can you shut up?